Hi, my name is Bishop Gregory Lightner, and this is Pastor Karen Lightner, and we are the host of Is Love Enough, where we are healing, hoping, and inspiring change one conversation at a time. And tonight we're going to be talking about finding love again.
Yes, we would like to thank WYTV7 Community Broadcasting Network for hosting Is Love Enough. WYTV7 is a nonprofit organization that educates, empowers, and encourages others and appreciates all donations.
And tonight our guest is Mrs. Tiffany Britt. Will you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Tiffany Britt, and I am originally from Norfolk, Virginia, born and raised. And I currently reside in Jacksonville, Florida, where I am a computer science and coding teacher.
Well, we are so grateful to have you on with us tonight, talking about finding love again. But first, let's ask the big question, is love enough?
So I personally do not feel that love is enough, because I feel like there are other factors that play a role in relationships that actually play a bigger part, such as communication, knowing your partner's love language, knowing how to communicate to your partner, whether that be mentally, physically, emotionally, just being able to build that bond with someone. And there are a lot of parts that build up to getting towards love. So for me, I don't think that love is just enough. You have to have that foundation already set, because if love falls, you have to have something to fall back on to hold your relationship strong.
Right. We always do agree that love on its own is not enough. You do have to have other things to go along with it. That love is a great foundation, but you have to build upon it to make every relationship work.
Yes. Let me ask you a question. Did you have any reservations leading up to your wedding day, and how long were you married?
So, yes, I did. You know, as women, they say we all have this woman's intuition, right? So I definitely had my doubts. I had my reservations. I even actually called off my wedding because I was in so much fear, so much doubt, just because of certain things that we were kind of dealing with before actually getting married and saying I do. And so even after meeting with the marriage counselors or meeting with my spiritual advisor, even after having those personal conversations, I think for me, I'm such a lover that I just followed my own heart and did what my heart led me to do. So I still got married.
So let me ask you a question, because a lot of young women are going to be watching this. What would you say to young women that are having, I think reservations are normal before we say that big question, before we say I do. But what would you say to young women that may be having abnormal reservations before they say I do? What advice would you give them?
It's very important to listen to your heart, but also listen to your mind. I think sometimes we allow our heart to take control of certain situations, and we lead with our heart and not our minds, which causes us to make decisions that aren't always best decisions. I would say examine your atmosphere. Examine the situations that you put yourself in, or certain signs that may be a signal that are giving you red flags. Pay attention to those and figure out a way that if there's something you want to deal with, or if it's something that is worth tolerating, and if not, pay attention to those and have those deep, necessary conversations before you say I do.
Okay, you mentioned red flags. What would you say was your deal breaker, and were there red flags during the marriage that you tried to work through?
So red flags in my marriage were, I'm all about communication. I think for me, the foundation of a relationship, it starts with communication. And one of the things I can say that we both actually played a role in. So I don't just point fingers one way in one direction when it comes to communication, because that was something that we both could have been better and more successful in. But because we were not, the lack thereof when it came to communication, we would just sweep all of our problems under the rug. So we wouldn't handle or deal with those situations, which means they became repeated habits, right? Because you're not solving and coming up with solutions. So again, sweeping it all under the rug, the rug began to pile up. Those problems began to pile up. And it just got to a point where it just got to a point where I said, okay, this doesn't seem like it's repairable. You know, I again spoke with different spiritual advisors, but it became a mental thing. I mentally was unhappy. I had mentally checked out from the marriage. There were some other personal marital affairs that took place that just weren't worth coming back from. And so for me, I didn't want to stay in a marriage where I didn't feel like the support or encouragement to develop and come back together as one was there, because we had allowed it to get so far gone, it was hard to come back to. And for me, I didn't want to stay somewhere where I looked back and said, hey, I've been in this marriage, I allowed myself to stay in something that I was unhappy in. I never became the woman who I knew I could evolve to become. And so one of us had to make the big decision, and I was the one who made the big decision, and we decided to get a divorce.
I think it's really important for a lot of young women to hear again. You said you wouldn't be able to become the woman you wanted to become, staying in a marriage that was unhappy and unfulfilling. And again, I think a lot of young women are going to hear this and be able to relate to this and be able to understand there is life after divorce. So now let's ask this, since we talked about where you were, let's dive into where you are now. How did you open yourself up for the possibility of new love?
So for me, I've always been a lover. Love has never been something that was challenging for me to be open to. But I wanted to make sure, because of what I had experienced in my marriage, I wanted to make sure that I really took my time to find love that was going to be for Tiffany. I wanted to make sure that it was going to be something that I was going to be happy in. So when I met my now boyfriend, the chemistry that we had was just mind-blowing. It was significant. And one of the very first things that I made him do, and I also did, was that we took a love language test, the 5 love languages, which I'm a true #1 fan of before and beginning of relationships, is learning your partner's love language. Because once you learn that, you know how to communicate with that partner. You know what their love language is and how to respond to them. So after we both took our love language test, it became something that was the foundation for our relationship as we began to develop and become one.
We call that learning how to speak. Well, I call it learning how to speak Karen. And she calls that learning how to speak Greg. And it is important that you learn that, because everything is not a spoken thing, how we communicate. Sometimes we communicate without language. It could be how we say something with more emphasis or less emphasis. Right. But it's learning how to communicate with that particular person and knowing them, so then you understand their language. You understand you understand when they're happy, and you understand when they're a little bit perturbed with you and they're not saying it. So understanding that is a deeper level of communication that some couples struggle to get to.
Yeah, and I found out by him, I just can't come and assume, okay, if I don't say nothing, okay, I'm assuming he's going to get it. Because he doesn't. So it's like, baby, what you want me to do, you better just come out and tell me.
Tell me.
So speaking, coming right out and tell him, don't assume he going to know. Don't use no body language. Just come out.
And I cannot read lips.
At all.
Right. And that's so important to know, because a lot of men are like that. A lot of men will say, hey, well, I'm not a mind reader. You have to tell me what it is that you want me to know, or what it is that you want me to do. And that's something I've learned in my relationship from the beginning all the way up until this point. I mean, we've been together now over a year, and there are things that we're still learning about each other. But one of the things I can honestly say is that when I need to communicate something to him, I know that I need to be just flat out, straight up and honest with him exactly what it is that I want him to either do, say, or how to communicate with me, or hey, whatever the issue is, let's resolve it. He doesn't know if I don't tell him.
I think it's a good point to say this, because I talk to a lot of men, and this is where men get frustrated at. They often say, Bishop, Pastor, Chef, I just want her to tell me what she wants. She's not telling me. So then the guy gets frustrated because the girl is not telling him what she wants. And for a lot of men, we don't interpret very well. We try to, but we don't. And then what happens when he tries to interpret it wrong, the girl gets upset. So I think this is a really good conversation for men and women tonight, that women understand that they need to tell their man what they want. And
sometimes it actually pushes you out of your comfort zone, because I know for me, there are certain conversations that I may walk on eggshells with. But I know that I have to be, I have to put my be a big girl, and have to say, okay, well, hey, I'm going to have this honest conversation with him, because regardless of how I may feel about it, this is my method of how I communicate with him. This is the only way that he's going to understand.
Well, we're at that point where we have to take a commercial break. We'll be right back talking about finding love again.
Always been my mission to help people with their health. Organs are some of the most nutrient-dense superfoods on the planet, and yet we're not getting them in our diet. My name is James Berry. I've been a chef for over 16 years. I came up with this new product. It's called Pluck. It's an organ-based all-purpose seasoning. In Pluck, you don't need to know how to cook. Just simply either make a food how you would and finish it with Pluck. You can add it to the recipe while you're making it. You can finish it with Pluck. You can simply just season your meal with Pluck. By being a shelf-stable spice, can be added to any food: popcorn, rice, salad, chicken, fish, eggs, you name it, and you can use it with Pluck, the organ-based all-purpose seasoning that's versatile and goes with any food. Nutrition in a pinch.
Hi, we're back with Is Love Enough. I'm Bishop Gregory Lightner. This is Pastor Karen Lightner, and we are joined with Tiffany Britt, and we are talking about finding love again. And so before we took our break, we were talking about love languages and communication and understanding how that works and how it functions within a relationship. Let's dive right into our next question.
Okay, they say one should have an expectancy list. Did you? And what were some of your must-haves in your new mate?
Oh, expectancy list. Okay. Yeah. So for me, yes, there were some things that I was looking for when it came to meeting my significant other. But that list, as you get older, that list starts to shorten. It's not as long as it was when you were younger. So for me, the most important thing that mattered to me was meeting someone who wanted the same qualities that I wanted in a relationship, but also knew how to communicate. And they knew that they were ready for the next level of a relationship when it came to commitment. They weren't just looking for, a good time, but they were looking for someone who could be their life partner, because that was what I wanted to be able to develop as we began the relationship. I didn't want to jump into being able to settle down, but because I knew what I wanted someone who I could build and get to that expectancy of long-term commitment with.
Mm-hmm. Okay, with that being said, how necessary was God during the healing process?
God was totally necessary when I began my healing process. It was so interesting because I didn't find comfort in the beginning of sharing the news of my divorce with my family and my friends, just because of, the embarrassment, starting over, wondering if someone was going to love you because you were now a divorcee. Even though I don't have children, I didn't have baggage, but mentally I was a divorcee. So finding someone who was willing to be open to that and accepting of that was something that I definitely wanted to make sure I found in a mate. So for me, yes, the healing process and being with God and developing my relationship with him, I definitely depended on 100% my faith, allowing my faith to grow, because I depended on God to get me to where it was I needed to be within the next season of my life. So yes, he was definitely played a major part in my relationship.
So we talk about this a lot, and I want to just drill down into it just a little bit deeper. We talk about healing processes a lot, we talk about getting over, but what did your healing process look like? How did you heal?
So I took a lot of time and journaled a lot. When I first started going through my separation, I wasn't surrounded by family and friends. I lived in a different city at the time. So I found myself journaling a lot, watching a lot of different sermons. One of my admirations, who I love and I follow a lot, is Sarah Jakes Roberts, and watching her sermons and listening to how much she's spoken to women's lives just really helped me evolve and dig deeper into my prayer life and into my spiritual life, and finding that connection that could help me find balance in who I was. I wanted to make sure that I also was building the relationship in who I was, becoming more confident in who I was. So setting the foundation to prepare myself for someone next, because you never want to go into your next season with unfinished business from your prior season, right? So I had to make sure that I was prepared mentally, physically, spiritually, to go be prepared for whatever God had for me in that next season, whether it had been, meeting my significant other, or starting a new job, or developing the next stage of my life. I wanted to make sure I was armored and prepared all over for that season. So my journal, I do see it. God has definitely told me I'm going to write a book soon, because my life is definitely a testimony. So I truly believe that everything that I've been through and all the challenges I've experienced have made me stronger and confident in the person that you see today.
So let me ask this question. We talked about getting over and healing. How have you guard against letting old hurt come into your new situation?
So that kind of plays back to taking a stance and a stand against negativity. So I'm all about making sure that I focus my mindset on the positivity. I think in this season, especially with COVID, it's so easy to get distracted mentally and suckered into that mentality of negativity. So regardless of whatever the situation is, I always try to affirm in myself first, okay, you got to climb out of that funk. It's okay to be there 5 minutes, but you got to pull yourself back up. You got to gear it in together, and you got to recenter and refocus that energy. And I tell myself, hey, you aren't this pity party. You are better than that. Don't allow past mistakes or past hurt to dictate who you are and who you are becoming, because you're better than that. So I think sometimes we have to speak life into ourselves. And it's so important that we do that daily. I tell my students that, I tell my friends that, I tell my family that. Affirm and speak and manifest in who you are and who you believe that you are and who you believe that you are becoming. So that's something I stand on, I speak on wholeheartedly. I have it on my affirmation board. I have it on my classroom. I have it on my wall in my bathroom. I post signs daily to just remind myself who I am, who I'm becoming, and where I'm going. So affirmations, if you don't have them, I totally believe that those are steps to help you remind yourself and become confident in who you are. Post them around your house. Have them on your cell phone. There are apps you can download that remind you minutes of the day, hours by the day, who you are, and stand firm on that.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. I totally believe that working on oneself can always get you to a better place and definitely prepare you for your next season. So let's ask this question. How has it been with your new love?
So it's been amazing. I'll say that. When we first met, we have been inseparable ever since. Again, like I said, we've been together a little over a year. And after our first date, it was just stars and glitz and glamour, right? But as we got to the fold of coming close to our first year of our relationship, that week leading into our 1 year, we were tested in every way possible that I could possibly be thrown. And I just felt like it was the enemy trying to attack the relationship that we both had worked so hard on developing together. But overall, he supports my decisions. He encourages me. He holds me accountable for the things that I do. He supports my business ideas. He has totally been someone who has allowed me to be confident in the woman who I am, allowed me to become the woman that I am. And it's, for me, I personally feel that having that in a mate is so important. So all those great qualities and features that I have in him, it totally makes me beyond happy. It's not always easy because no relationship is easy, right? You have your ups and downs. But I think for us, what makes our relationship so much better is being able to come back together stronger, being able to, one, not stay mad at each other, being able to discuss and communicate with each other, being able to have those deep conversations that sometimes make you uncomfortable, or challenging one another to push each other to our better. So for me, I'm very, very happy, not just in who I have, but I'm happy in myself, which allows me to be the great mate that I am to him.
Would you say your new love played an instrumental part in helping to heal the old hurt, and how?
Bits and pieces, but only small parts. And I say that because going into a relationship, a new relationship, especially leaving an old one, it's very important to make sure that you are healed from past hurt. Because if you're not healed, you carry over that damage into a new situation, and then you allow those old hurts you take those triggers out on the next person. So he helped me my bits and pieces, because I personally feel that I was healed in certain areas. But there were moments where I was triggered in certain areas that reminded me. But though they reminded me in certain areas, again, those were my moments where I had to say to myself, he's not responsible for that. And I couldn't allow those triggers to be triggered towards him. So I had to take accountability, and I had to check myself. So he's definitely helped me in certain areas, but I wanted to make sure I was healed before stepping into that relationship.
That's so good, because a lot of times we will allow our past hurts and not being completely healed to ruin our next season by bringing over old stuff and then holding somebody accountable for something they didn't even do. They have no idea of, and then we're holding them accountable for it, and we're hurting or ruining our new season. Again, I think this is so good. I think a lot of young women are going to hear this and understand that they need to be healed before they find that next love or their new love.
I also want to add to that no person is perfect, right? So though we may feel that we are totally healed, we all have moments or situations or things that trigger us from past experience. But in order to deal with those triggers, you have to make sure that you're taking accountability for those triggers, because you may have moved on into a new relationship, but there may be moments that move you in a different way, and you have to take accountability and say, hey, you have to stop, pause, and say, hey, that's not him or that's not her. This is how I'm going to handle it internally myself. Or you have to take responsibility for that and be able to heal from that on your own and not hold that other person accountable, because they're not responsible for your past hurt. You have to make sure that you are healed and you are healing yourself through that process, because no one's perfect. So we all have those moments that are going to come up. It's how you handle those moments in moving forward that makes it better.
That's good.
Yes, that's really good. That's right. How did you go about making you the first priority?
So I think it's easier for me right now because I don't have kids. For women who also have kids, I think that question will be kind of narrated a little bit differently, or the answer will be a little bit different. But how I handled that is that it was easy to put myself first. I wanted to make sure that I was taking accountability and responsibility for who I was. I wanted to make sure whatever goals and life decisions I wanted to make, I put first for me, whether it be work, whether it be business ventures that I wanted to start. I had to make sure that I was putting me first. So there were things that I wanted to do and that I still do, but I make sure that, okay, this is what Tiffany wants to do. So I'm making sure that I'm putting that first for me.
I have a question. So I hear you talk a lot about accountability, which I'm a fan of, making sure you're accountable for your own actions, your own space, and what's going on. So can you talk about how you became accountable, how you got to that space? Because we don't automatically get there. It takes a process for all of us to get to the point where we're holding ourselves accountable and not pushing it off on everybody else. Can you talk about how you got to the place of accountability?
So for me, I've always been someone who hasn't found it hard to take accountability for my actions, because as a career person, I've had different jobs where I had to say, okay, well, this person is telling me, maybe something I don't want to hear, but I did do that
or handle that situation in a way that maybe I could have handled it different. So that those comments or that reflection that I was being told, I had to take responsibility for those actions. Even as a teacher, there are moments where, you know, I'm being reviewed or analyzed, and I have people come in, district or my principal comes in, and they're like, hey, these are areas that we saw that you can work in on. And because I've always been someone, I'm always open to being better as a person, being better as an individual, taking information from others who I know have gone through those processes and turning them into mine is how I've always been able to make sure I hold myself accountable in different areas.
Listen, our time is almost up. I want you just to speak to young women that are going through similar situations, and let's give them a couple of minutes of great advice, what to do to be open to finding love, and what to do when they find it.
So I just want to say to every young, beautiful woman, queen out there searching for love or hoping to find love again, that love does exist. I think that God never placed any woman on this earth or any person on this earth to be left alone by themselves. Never feel like your end is where you are. Always know that in due season, your time will come. Celebrate others when they're in their season. And when your time comes, others will celebrate you. Others will have your back. Be open to affirmations. Affirming yourself and feel confident in who you are and who you are becoming. Make sure that you receive love as much as you should give love. Don't close off your heart. Be open to communicating with people. And remember, though no one is perfect, because none of us are perfect, there will always and sometimes be triggers. But how you handle those moments of self-defeat will always make you better as a person. Take accountability, take responsibility, affirming who you are, love who you are, and be your best.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Miss Tiffany Britt, on Is Love Enough, where we have been talking about finding love again. It is possible to find love again, to heal and to find that love. God created it for all of us. And if you are open to it, God will bring it in your space. Thank you for joining us tonight.
We would like
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We would like to thank WYTV7 Community Broadcasting Network for hosting Is Love Enough. If you would like to be a guest, you can email us at gtlm.isloveenough@gmail.com or give us a call at 912-509-0178.
And you can always donate to
WYTV7.org. Click on Donate Now and Give.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on Is Love Enough?